wow, will this guy become a sigina after that? Take my money, go to casino or go somewhere.
It's like, yeah,
right.
阿公死了，我退休了，我有钱了 ，Let's go.
Yeah.
Alright, welcome ladies and gentlemen to a new episode of Red Flag, Green Flag. Now today we're going to talk about something slightly more interesting, a little bit of my comfort zone, things where you want to leave on to your successors, you want to leave on to the rest of your family. Some people call it legacy planning. I call it a bunch of problems. And when it comes to problems, I always will bring subject matter experts. So ladies and gentlemen, here with me in the studio, we have my subject experts for insurance and trust.
Hi, my name is Kenric. I'm the insurance specialist from FSM1.
Hi, my name is Jack Hao. I'm the estate planning expert from IGT.
And the first question is, my grandfather is really old and he planned to pass down his wealth after he passes on. So he split it up to be given to us yearly, but only if we attend his birthday parties, so that the family will stay together, or that's what he thinks. Every year, we would gather together and he would hand us out our little stipend or dividends. But unfortunately, my grandfather has passed on earlier than expected, and the family started to grow apart. It eventually led to a situation where some of them are hating on each other. So every year, the family will come together to collect our share of the inheritance. Some years, because the families hate each other, heated arguments happen when we meet. My grandfather, red flag or green flag? Okay, 1, 2, 3. Ooh, okay, interesting. The debate has begun. Alright, so we'll go down live from Chao first. Why is it a green flag?
From my personal experience in the trust industry, especially where I was previously working in, I've seen some of my clients, they put down strict rules inside their trust, and they say, I would like my family together at specific occasions, to celebrate before they are entitled to a certain amount of the trust fund. So, to the layman, I think a lot of people will say, wow, how come this grandfather, make it so hard for people to inherit something for him? I think what he's trying to do is to still have his spirit of, getting the family together to be harmonious. I think this is one of the ways that he can do it when he's apart and, cannot participate in this kind of activities anymore.
Right.
So I think what you described just now is plausible. It did happen based on my own experience.
So it's entirely okay that the rule set that is being set by the person who passed on is so complicated. Like, it's common, is it?
Well, I wouldn't say it's really common because from my previous work, I deal with large families, who have substantial assets. At the end, people, sometimes they argue over money. That's why you say, families have arguments and they fall apart. I think that's one very direct way of what the patriarch wants to control,
right?
To still let that family continue to be harmonious to a certain extent.
Right.
Hopefully they can get together more often, and then eventually all this past vengeance can eventually fade away.
Okay, Kenric, why do you think it's a green flag?
Yes, money is a very sensitive topic, especially between families. So I believe that the grandfather, he does have very good intention. All he wants is to ensure that the family come together, have this kind of family gathering. Even though after his passing, they will still remember him and he can leave a legacy, so that this could be a positive force for the family to, grow together and bond as well.
Hey, actually my family good one because of your dumb policy now, they start fighting. It's like, you want to watch drama, go and turn on 4:30 Ama drama. Why you have to start one in my own family? Let's say I want to have my family come together. Okay, I want to give them money for fulfilling, I don't know, like yearly hallmark events. Is there no other way to do this except to you have together so that you get money?
It all depends on the family members as well. It's important to see how strong they are, how close they are as a family. So for example, if let's say we were to split the children into different age group, for example 3 children, the youngest one maybe haven't started working, whereas the 2 oldest one have already started working, and there's financial stability. So maybe you could set a rule whereby the youngest ones, because haven't started working, that's why need more money. So perhaps you could get a higher percentage.
We shouldn't make it so complex for the descendants to actually inherit the inheritance. Because here's the thing about humans, right? The more complex you make it, right, the more likely they'll be like, got loophole. I'm gonna exploit this loophole. So technically I only need to appear, right? Okay, can lah. Then in uni or whatever nowadays, very cute. You got your admin card. You go there, tick the card, or attendance taken.
Sign out.
So I was like, then that makes it very detractive for the people who genuinely care to bond with the family they come. Then some people just, show face, sign paper, take money and leave. It will create more problems problems? No.
I think ultimately it depends on the family culture, because some families they have many branches, right? So and perhaps the patriarch himself during his lifetime, he has been instructing people to be nice, right? So even after death, he also wants to maintain that kind of control.
Right.
It is rare that such things happen. I think what would be better is, over time, even before you pass on, you set the family values culture right, so that people gather for the right reasons, and not just because I want to come here, sign in to get my X amount, go home, have fun, and see you next year kind of thing.
Assuming that we don't want to do that yearly forceful gathering, right? Is it wise for the person who is like about to pass on to say, hey, how about I give you a lump sum versus like, or maybe I stagger it out? Is there a reason for either camps? Because logically, it would make sense for you to pass on, split all, then after that, no drama already ma.
If you give them a lump sum, probably it will disappear somewhere. Even you give to an adult, they might see the next Lamborghini.
And can't you like put it in a trust or something, so that like, okay, when you are sensible with your money already, then you get to access it lah, right?
Yeah, there are people who set up trust fund to defer payment to their beneficiaries, like for example, young kids, right? So you don't want them to mismanage their money. In fact, they can't even manage money at that age.
Right.
So they pass it on to somebody they trust, and then hopefully this person can continue to to support the children financially until they come of age.
Right.
So of course, when you come of age, then they also wonder, wow, will this guy become a Sigina after that? Take my money, go to casino or go somewhere.
It's like, yeah,
right.
阿公死了，我有钱了 ，Let's go.
Yeah. When you're young, you're adult already, you started working, then suddenly you have a big amount of money in your pocket. You start to have a lot of fancy ideas.
Right.
Say, I quit my job, become an entrepreneur, but not doing your own calculated risk of being an entrepreneur. You just sink that money in there, and then you get cheated. Then the money gets squandered away. Quite a lot of parents, they do set up trust funds for their children to at least prevent spendthrifts from wasting their assets away.
Let's say if you were to put yourself in the grandfather's position, you're looking at about like $5 million worth of money that you're gonna push out. It doesn't make any sense for you to push out immediately because your descendants some of them are still children. What do you think should be the way that a person can even like begin to like even plan this out?
I think for me personally, I would appoint someone like maybe a financial planner, someone who is very strong, someone who has good knowledge with the money so that they are able to provide their expert advice. In a way, allow him to manage the money.
So means I pass on to somebody, it's their problem now. So
No, you don't laugh about it, but there are people doing a real business out of it. For example, there are companies out there who hold money on behalf of people who have passed on, and then through a certain set of rules, they disperse the money out accordingly. So some of them are simple. They say every month give X amount to so and so. Right. So it can be as simple as that. It's just mainly to help people to get on with their lives, support them financially. For those kind that want to make people gather just because of money, some of these companies can help. They do a roll call, or they are impartial, and then they can sort of make that process a bit easier for family members.
Right.
For example, one uncle to be in charge of that. The uncle maybe have some personal bias towards towards certain nephews, certain nieces. Hey, even it's not here, never mind, I just take right. So there are people out there who are licensed to help families like that. Ultimately, it depends on family value and culture, and also depending how complex family relationships are. In Singapore context, thankfully, we like family ties. We still gather no matter what, good times or bad times. But then eventually, when things need to happen, right, then there are solutions out there that can help you achieve that kind of intention if you want to.
So do you have to like declare to the person that now you're entrusting the funds to manage, be like, okay, so I want my family to like come together, I want to maintain my so-called family culture. How is that person supposed to know what steps to move forward to? What's a good like rough outline on how I should go about ensuring that my money that I leave to my descendants does not become the main problem that why they fight?
Your question is a bit loaded, because I think first of all, leaving instructions behind, of course, it has to be documented, it has to be attested, right? And usually we also encourage families to have enough family members be present to know of this arrangement, so they don't argue with the appointed person that hey, why are you doing this? How come I don't know that, right? Typically, in the past, I used to get people together, sit together in the same room, let them understand the terms because that would make it easier for the appointed person, to discharge his or her duty. That's one way of doing it, to officialize it.
Do I need to have this conversation with my family before I pass on? This is what my after death game plan is gonna be.
Personally, I feel yes, have to. Like, especially about money, things have to be transparent. What's going to be the next step? Because if let's say you're talking about 5 million, that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
So rather than you suddenly, just tell me, hey, I've appointed this person, he or she will do so and so. Of course, you will get a big shock.
On the capacity of, let's say, you're offering this kind of services, right? Is it up to the person who come to you to engage the services to already have a plan? Or can you help the person work out like, hey, maybe, last time got this guy try the birthday party, don't try that one. You try something else. Whose job is it to figure out what the conditions are?
I think it still relies on the patriarch or the matriarch ultimately, because they are the ones who know best of their families. But of course, sometimes they have arguments down the line, they doesn't travel out all the way up to the patriarch or matriarch. In this kind of family setup, they usually have a few key people within the family, you rope them in, you be transparent with them. But of course, that opens up another can of worms. People are not happy. Right? So I think I can understand why the grandfather did what he did. He said, okay, enough, I will just proceed on my own.
Yeah.
Of course, that may eventually, cause rifts down the way,
right.
Because definitely people won't agree. But then, what to do? That's the best that the grandfather can think of. I think in this case, they have the grandfather sits with some professionals that work down the terms so that the professional can see it from a very independent angle. They can tell the patriarch or matriarch, say, if you do this, it might result in that. Are you okay with that?
Right.
So sometimes they have questions where they prompt the patriarch matriarch to think about objectively. So because favorite grandson, the professional will say, don't think of him as your favorite grandson. You have a lot of grandsons. You should also think about them. I know you do favor this one, but think of what will happen, if you show favoritism to this person even after you die. Right? And then imagine the pressure on this particular one. So, you need to have somebody that's outside of the family circle to go and tell the patriarch matriarch and say, hey, consider this.
When you start to split it amongst your family, right, there will always be tension. Like, even we don't talk about 5 million, talk about $50,000. $50,000 to different kind of people means a lot of different things. There is no situation in which legacy planning can be frictionless. So the moment you have 2 children, then it becomes a problem. Has there ever been a situation in which the divide between the children's are not equal?
A plan is better than no plan. So at least you are clear of how much to give to whichever, to whoever. Let's say a person dies without a will. So what happens is that the assets will be split accordingly to the act in Singapore. For example, if there's a spouse and then 2 children, so 50% go to the spouse and then the 2 children will split equally. But let's say, for example, the spouse is well taken care of, she has her own career and things like that. It's the 2 children that needs more money. So in this case, I'm talking about adult children. So probably the money might serve the children better than the wife, because the wife probably is already old, retired, have enough to spend and live on. Of course, the mom could have just passed it on to the sons, right? Now the burden comes to the wife. Hey, how much should I pass it on to my sons? Which one of them? You give them equally, it looks fair. But maybe one son is probably, a runaway, zao chu, don't want to come back home, do all sorts of different things, hurt the family and all that. And then the son who is the good son, takes care of the parents, may feel that, hey, I've been taking care of family for so long, right? Why is my brother getting that amount of money? So you have friction like that. If you have a plan, at least you can think out, you put something in place, and then at the end of the day, when people look back, say, dad did think through what he wants to give us individually. I think it will minimize friction to a certain extent. Of course, people will not be contented,
sure.
Right? So you will still have arguments, no doubt, but at least the friction will be much less if you just leave it to the state to decide how much of your assets will be given to each one of them.
So the goal actually for legacy planning is not really to minimize friction, because friction will always be a constant, right? It is to just disseminate your current assets in a conditional way that's logical, so that somebody else can do it when you pass. How future-proof must I plan my legacy planning? Because I can plan until this kid becomes 21, I can plan until he becomes 60, but like, where do I stop? When do I need to plan in terms of, let's say I have some who are still children and there are some who are just like graduate uni, can start work already, but you won't know whether they are working or not because you're dead. So how do I plan for that?
I guess the best case scenario is, you plan for, 10, 20 future generations, right? But no, but that being said, because with inflation and stuff, yeah, so if that subject matter expert is able to, manage the money well, in a sense whereby 5 million is not just 5 million, it's being invested as well. You don't pass the whole lump sum. So that, your children, your grandchildren and great-grandchildren, so on, the money is still continually growing. Yeah. So that's the best case scenario lah. But at the end of the day, there's only that much that you can control.
So you don't actually need to give all of it to like your descendants. Like logically you can put it in an instrument that then will yield to the descendants, and that could be just your estate planning lah. So I think at the end of the day, right, we need to acknowledge the fact that the grandfather was cute, he was trying to do something. That there sure was an attempt. Whether the attempt yielded success or not is really dependent on them. But I think that if you are trying to plan your estate and you're trying to plan your legacy, we need to acknowledge the fact that friction will happen. Or if not, if you don't know, right, just go and find a person who knows. Then just, hey, handle for me. I'm very busy, I gotta die now. Okay, sick lah. I like this conclusion.
At the end of the day, he bequeaths certain amount to the Cancer Foundation. So,
but you never know. Maybe the dad give to charity just to reduce his tax.